shape suitable development by introducing innovative approaches, driving policy reforms, and building resilient communities. We would like to look beyond traditional roles, showcasing women leaders who are steering change in education, governance, power corridors, management, and economic development. We have a distinguished panel today with us, and each of whom has made a significant contribution in their field. They will share insights on overcoming systematic barriers, fostering collaboration, and pioneering solutions that align with SDG goals. We'll discuss the challenges, opportunities, and strategies essential for breaking down barriers and supporting women's active role in sustainable development. Please allow me to introduce our august panel. We have the gracious presence of Dr. Nafisa Shah. As a member of National Assembly, Dr. Shah has a long-standing commitment to human rights and education and has worked extensively in sustainable development. Ma'am, welcome to the panel. We have the pleasure of the company of Ms. Farzana Yaqub, former Minister for Social Welfare and Women Development in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Ms. Yaqub has been a vocal advocate for women's rights, focusing on social policy and sustainability. Ma'am, welcome. And then we are joined by Ms. Shaista Pervez Malik. Ma'am, welcome to the panel, who is member of National Assembly. And Ms. Malik has actively promoted gender-sensitive policy focused on women's empowerment, health, and education. We also have the presence of Dr. Zeba Sattar. As the country director of the Population Council, Dr. Sattar leads research on family planning, public health, and population dynamics in Pakistan. In the latter part of the session, we will also be joined by Ms. Roshan Khurshid Barocha, who has an extensive background in governance and social equity. And Ms. Barocha has held federal roles focusing on women's rights, education, and community welfare. We would like to initiate our panel, and I would like to invite Dr. Nafisa Shah at first. So, ma'am, you have been in power corridors with the stature of the parliamentarian. So what are the key challenges women face in leadership roles? How can they overcome them? And especially pertaining to the very title of this panel, Developing a Nexus with Sustainable Development Goals, how can women in leadership roles influence policy frameworks for sustainable development? Your thoughts around it. SDTI
for this very important annual conference. This is the 27th Sustainable Development Conference, and I'm pleased that I've been informed that there are a large number of country representatives, international representatives are there, and of course it is really in a way. It takes a center stage for development agenda discussions in Pakistan. I just want to begin with relevance to the topic today on women leaders and the Sustainable Development Goals. I just want to begin with a quote. I dream of a Pakistan, of an Asia, of the world where every child conceived is nurtured, loved, educated, and supported. I dream of a Pakistan, of an Asia, of the world, not undermined by ethnic divisions brought upon by population growth, starvation, crime, and anarchy. I dream of a Pakistan, of an Asia, of a world where we can commit our social resources to the development of human life and not to its destruction. Now, this quote has to be from a woman leader, and it is a woman leader that Pakistan produced, who led the struggle for democracy and who became twice our prime minister. Beginning from a very young age, she was 36 or 37, and then, again, and unfortunately, we lost her to extremism and the battle that this country was waging, existential battle, and that's Shaheed Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto. And I think I wanted to, begin with her quote because I want to emphasize, or it cannot be overemphasized, that when women are in leadership positions, of course, I would like to argue that while women in their own, as humans are as good or bad leaders as men are, but women do emphasize social development when they, and this is, so taking cue from her, she placed emphasis on social development, and it was central to her agenda and to her vision. And as a woman parliamentarian, I'm informed, of course, by the vision of our leaders and my experience at multiple levels as a worker, at the local level and the constituency, where we face really intimately day-to-day problems of the people of Pakistan, particularly women. And then at this level, where we do policy as a woman parliamentarian, our perspective has always been to focus on really the real issues of people of Pakistan. And gender is, for me, one of the top questions that we actually should be looking at. One of the things that we did when we lost Shahid Bibi was to make a parliamentary caucus, and I'm sure Shaista would be talking also about that. And the reason why we made this caucus was that we said, let's bring women as the center of the agenda of the parliament, and let us send a message to the people, the people we represent, and also in the parliament, that women will work across party lines and will not allow division. As you know, politics is all about division. It's all about eyes and nose. But for gender and for rights, we said, well, only go for eyes and eyes. And so we set up this. And that was in the parliament between 2008 and 13. And we also, moving forward, within that, we created a space for women's rights legislation. I don't want to hold the time because there'll be other speakers, but I just want to say that that was the time when we did seminal legislation on women's rights. One of the most important legislation that this country has seen on gender rights is anti-sexual harassment law in 2010 that came about in that period. And then a strong Human Rights Commission reinvented with a new focus. And of course, the Status of Women Commission. These were all set up there. The other thing that we did at that time was, with respect to today's topic, we also said that, at that time, the SDGs, the earlier generation of SDGs was the Millennium Development Goals. And within the same group that set up the caucus, we said, well, when it comes to the male focuses on, fighting, on political contests, on political speak, well, let us now go inside and look at the day-to-day issues. And the MDGs would give us that focus on social development. So we also at that time set up a special task force. We had a woman speaker at that time who was also very interested. That was Femida Mirza. So we set up a Millennium Development Goal Task Force, which was also led by a woman, Shehnaz Wazir Ali. Now, Shehnaz Wazir Ali is also the architect of Shahid Bibi's most important social program, that is these women development workers at the grassroots level, the Lady Health Worker Program. So we set this up, and then that led into the second articulation of that was the SDG Secretariat within the Parliament. Then we set up the Child Rights Caucus, and then now I've just, with the help of my colleagues, we are also looking at the energy issues from now. All these cross-party alliances were led by women, so really practical. So these are some of the things that we've done. On the challenges, I think we can go in the second round, because I think that we want to hear what other colleagues are saying. Each of them have, of course, given their own direction to this the social agenda for people of Pakistan. So I'll stop here, and then I'll take the challenge question in the next round, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nafisa Shah, for actually initiating the narrative on this. And I would like to welcome our Executive Director, STPI, Dr. Abid Qiyum Suleri. And maybe, sorry, if you can comment. Sure, sure. So thank you very much for setting the tone and tune of this session in terms of women leadership and women empowerment and its nexus with sustainable development goals. I would now like to invite Ms. Shaista Pervez, the parliamentarian. Ma'am, so you have been a member of National Assembly and you have actively promoted gender sensitive policies focused on women empowerment. So when we talk about women empowerment and women leadership, it's not a phenomena that only exists at the bottom of the pyramid. The struggle equally holds for the women in power corridors. So do you think that in the uh, policy paradigm and in the power paradigm, uh, 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 there's a myopia in the system that fails to acknowledge the recognition of women in leadership roles? And also, like, how can we link it with the SDG agenda that the Assembly, the National Assembly, in the leading role is actually aiming to achieve, and especially the role of women? What is the current state of affairs regarding that?
Assalamu alaikum ji. First of all, I would like to thank STPI for taking the initiative and, to have an open discussion on a very important issue and to consider, that keeping out women from the mainstream, can countries progress? That is the question. And as I always, think and remember, when you want something said, ask a man. And when you want something done, ask a woman. This is what Margaret Thatcher said. And I really believe in it, that when countries, they can only progress when their women progress. And you have to have the women in the mainstream. And unless and until they sit on the decision-making tables, until the stakeholders are not involved in any decision, how can you make policies and how can you formulate strategies to move forward if the stakeholders are not involved in it? But it was a very challenging task to take up the chair from Nafisa Shah. When I came in 2013 as Women Parliamentary Caucus Secretary, it was an uphill task because she had really worked hard and it was tough for me. But I, with the team, I think I can proudly say that we achieved a lot with, as said by her, that it is an cross-party forum. And when you enter the caucus office, it's not they or them, it is we, and we work together and we move forward. And a lot of legislation, an important one was done during that time, It was one which I am very proud of, was the bill for women with disabilities came into, that we keep a segment of the society out. That was done. Then trans legislation was done in that period. Police reforms were done. Before, it was 1% police. We had meetings with them that they were on the desk jobs. They were not included in field jobs, and they were not included in work at, sensitizing and everything. That was introduced, and the percentage increased from 1 to 2, and I think now it's improving day by day, but it was the initiative. And then women voters, direct general election, which was, I think, you started, yes, but it was continued, and we requested for 15% direct seat, but it wasn't given. 10% was allowed. Even, it's starting. I think that needs also to be, yes, it's 10% now. Five now. We asked for 15, but 5 was given. So we need to work on that also, because it's direct. I've had the experience of both being on the reserved, and I've had a chance of coming from the general seat also. And I think women needs to be given that initiative also should be taken, that they can come on the direct seats. And then if there are no women voters, that was also part of the election thing that if it is not 10% women voters, then that election would be null and void. So good things happened. Honor killing bill was also during that period. So, you know, I feel that whenever women get together, when they have a chance of having their voice heard, things move and they improve. Because, and when things improve, when women get a chance, I think overall things improve, because then if they are empowered, then societies are empowered, their families are empowered, and I think countries move forward. So discussion as far as the platform given, I think it's still not satisfactory, to tell you honestly. There are huge challenges. We move 2 steps forward and we are again sent back. You know, so it is, we need to work together. We have to have our voices heard. And one thing, we have to somehow be there where decisions are taken, because unless and until we are there, who is going to voice for us? I mean, men are not, can't decide and can't think as women think, and can't work as we work. So, I mean, it's a long debate, but we are making progress in the assembly. The SDGs setup is there now. It started, I think now 10 years, 5 years, 10 years back. So that is working now. It's quite robust. We are moving forward on different things. So I have hope, and I think and I believe that, yes, we are moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So coming to our next panelist, Ms. Farzana Yaqub. So just building on what Ms. Shaista Pervez just mentioned, that there's a cohesion aspect that exists in the power corridors, and women do take a proactive approach when they come together and work together. However, contrary to this narrative, as women, we are very much familiar with the terminologies of sticky floors, glass ceiling, and a very new terminology that has been recently added into the literature, that is glass cliff. That when there's a mess, you bring in a very competent woman to clean up the mess. Otherwise, she won't be called in for this competent role and authority. So just looking at these phenomena that actually reflect the barrier dimension, I would really like to ask you, since you have advocated for women rights, focusing on social policy and sustainability, what is the missing link, or what is the weakest link in our social contract that has not been defined, or a proactive approach has not been taken over the decades to actually define that? Like, how can we pave the way for the SDGs that are holistic in nature, that of course comes with the pillar of women empowerment, with women equality, with the leading roles, but what has been the missing link in the system?
Thank you so much, and wonderful to see that Abid is still here listening to us. He's on a roller coaster ride today, so hands up to all that he does. And SDPI has always been at the forefront when it comes to development goals, whether they are millennium or they're sustainable. And someone has been taking up this really difficult task, and they did not let us, the parliamentarians, former or current, to forget. So hats off to them. Thank you so much, Abid, for keeping us on our toes mostly. Since I am from Azad Jammu Kashmir, so the most of the hard work was done by people like Nafisa and Shaista, and it was easier for people like us to follow suit or follow in the footsteps. फेडरल में जब कोई भी कानून बन जाता है तो फिर उसको हमने जो है ना कॉपी पेस्ट करके चलाना होता है, and at least within the Parliament of Azad Jammu Kashmir, we seldom face serious and severe issues when it comes to women empowerment or any other conversations which you might see are problematic in the National Assembly. Reason being that North, be it AJK or GB, you will find that the literacy rate is very high. And so the understanding that people have across gender lines is very different. And that is where you come up with the realization how important education is. So the more the population is educated, you will see that the work of the representatives is better, and they're held to account. We're more accountable than I've seen in other places. Also, the open access that you see within Azad Jammu Kashmir is because of all the educated people. The Union Council that I come from, its name is Ali Sojal, and it is, when it comes to literacy, at par with Islamabad. It is one of the most far-flung places, but when it comes to education, be it men or women, we're at par with Islamabad, ICT, while we do not enjoy all of these benefits and that we have over here. Having said all of that, Kashmir is also at the phase of most of the climate change related issues. And that is where I feel that we've had the opportunity to work. I have contested elections. I have never been on a reserve seat. So what I can say is that one, women coming into the political stream is really important. And that is because we need to be at the decision-making tables. We're good at managing conflicts. That is accepted. Although it is also said that, you know, if we had more women leaders, then instead of fights, we would have silence because we wouldn't talk to each other. So it is really important to have more women on the decision-making tables. We've sadly not had an increase in women winning. So there is this long gap that needs to be bridged when it comes to women contesting elections and women actually being able to win those seats. It is going to take more time for us. But the good part is that at least at the local government elections, we've seen an increase in women applying for elections, submitting their papers, and winning as well. So we have to remember that at a social development level, it might seem slow, but the progress is very much there. And it has to be baby steps, because if it is in leaps and bounds, most probably when they reach the destination that is desired, they might not have all the paraphernalia and all the tools that they require. Women are there, the tools are yet to be there to assist them. When it comes to climate change, women empowerment and all of that, at least in Azad Jammu Kashmir, we were successful in setting up a separate department for women development. It was initially part of the social welfare ministry, but then we set up a separate department. And in this department, what was done was the empowerment of women in bringing them into mainstream workplaces and businesses. But we've also noticed and seen clearly, STPI has done a lot of studies on that as well, that women require extra help in starting up their businesses. There are various reasons. One of them is access to capital. But having said that, men also struggle with access to capital. It's just that you multiply that with around 50%, 50. That is the kind of issues that women face. Women are also coming into technology. But once again, here is something that I want everyone to look into and consider. Even when we're coming into technology, SME sector has a lot of women. But what we're seeing is कि जो वो business करती थी सिलाई कढ़ाई का, technology में भी वो सिलाई कढ़ाई कर रही है. I will say something which might not be acceptable to a lot of you, but that for me, I'm sorry, is not a lot of progress. आपने वही दुकान आगे कर ली जिसकी space एक हद से ज़्यादा हो नहीं सकती. Why? Because there's no standardization of your designs. At least Pakistan has passed laws for geo-indicating. That could help us, but that would help us with stitches. We can't own all the designs. So there's a lot of push and pull. I have always been, and I still am involved in getting women to start working. There's only so many jobs that we have. Governments have a serious and severe issue when it comes to jobs. तो मर्दों की jobs पूरी नहीं हो रही होती, तो women तो अभी quotas पर आ रही हैं और उनकी वो space protect हो रही है. We need more women to be part of the entrepreneurship circle. But if it is always going to be mostly clothes and bags and shoes, I'm sorry, I lovely. I have one. I'm wearing Pakistani shoes. I'm wearing Pakistani clothes. But there's only so much growth that it can have. This is a different world that we live in, where we're looking for people who come into tech sector with technology, which is not just for like, an online shop, but more to that. And I believe that women can help Pakistan achieve the increase in exports. Why? Because women are also, not even knowing that they're following sustainable development goals, they're actually doing that. Why? Because they look at the nutrition of their family, they take care of the nutrition. Since the cooking is affecting their own health, so in hilly areas, they're careful about how much wood they have to burn, because most of it is being breathed in by the woman, and that affects her health. So at the forefront of climate change as well, it's the women who are working, and the assistance might not really be there, but it's being worked upon. I always want to leave with positivity, but there's a lot that we need to do. Policy initiatives are doing really well. One of the initiatives and the laws that were passed, which is kind of once again quite not appreciated by most of Pakistanis, and that is a woman's right to divorce. She had it in Islam and she had it in Pakistani law as well, but it could be taken up to years and years. But it was blocked at 6 months. That has increased the number of divorces, but I don't see that as a negative. The choice has been provided to you by the religion, and it cannot be restricted by the human. So if it is endowed upon by God, then the man shall do it. And at least women took it up and made it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So building on your thought process, I would like to come to Dr. Zeba Sattar. So ma'am, as a leading researcher, how do you see the landscape, and especially which Ms. Farzana just mentioned, that is it a case scenario of a petty promise of empowerment? Like जिस तरह उन्होंने mention किया कि अगर औरत दस्तकारी कर रही है तो टेक की स्पेस में भी उसकी दस्तकारी ही वो कर रही है, वो रिफाइन हो रही है. And with so much of policy making, with so much of initiatives, reform, what is wrong with our indexes? Why it is 153 out of 156 in gender equality? Why in female entrepreneurship index we are coming at last 77 out of 77th? Like, is there something wrong with our policy making paradigm, or our data repository is not strong enough to support our policy reforms? Especially in the shoes of researcher, how do you see the problem?
Thank you. First of all, I also want to congratulate STPI. I think this is really looking like a way, just looking at the program, fantastic. It really covers everything. We are involved in organizing conferences like this, but this is like 10 conferences in one. The other comment I want to make is I'm a fish out of water. I'm not a political representative, but I'm just a researcher. I think that I would like to maybe broaden the debate. I totally agree with you that if you are really cornering the same market, that doesn't really lift you to, and we're actually working with factory workers who feel the same. Rather than that, I would really like to bring up the general discussion into what researchers see very obviously. I mean, anyone who's looking at the data for Pakistan would see that we are 6 years away from the SDG deadline of 2030, and that we're clearly not going to meet those SDGs. I think we were even, though we were sort of floundering when it came to, I'm so glad you mentioned the MDGs. I remember the 2015 lead on to that. We felt we were late in the game. Somehow the whole realization came quite late, and then there was devolution, etc. Lots of excuses for not really paying attention to the MDGs. But there are no excuses for us to not meet the SDGs this time. But with 6 years left, I think it would really take, to me, just listening to the three previous speakers, it would take a strong group of women in parliament, particularly the federal parliament, but also then following on in the caucuses, etc., in the provinces, to really get up and say this, that we are not going to meet the SDGs. And this will look shameful for us internationally. But I think it's not just shameful internationally, it's really letting ourselves down, failing badly locally. And to me, it can be avoided. And I think leadership, you see, I think Pakistan has the brains. I mean, otherwise you won't have people attending conferences like that and making speeches. I was inspired by what we heard at the inaugural session. I was there, and I'm sure all the sessions. Brilliant people speaking and giving brilliant solutions. It's not that we have a shortage of those. It's the people in power who are not prioritizing human development or very critical indicators. Let's face it. And from listening to our colleagues who are trying to make a change, I totally feel your pain. I mean, I've been at it. We've been, and Dr. Nafisa knows very well, presenting data on population growth and how devastating. Shaukat Hamid Saab is here, right from Vision 2030, Vision 2025, you name it, how devastating this high population growth rate, unabated, is going to be for Pakistan. Apart from Benazir Bhutto Sahiba, who made that statement, and mild statements elsewhere, there's no, and no doubt, because she was a woman and she felt that, she said it. And then, therefore, we had the Lady Health Worker Program, which is, I think, one of the best things that Pakistan has ever had, and something to be proud of. It's not that everything in Pakistan has been bad. I think the Benazir Income Support Program is another excellent, it's world recounted, world evaluated, people are emulating us. So I don't know why we can't do this, except I think power is never given to you. You have to grab it. This is something that the director of PID said to us about doing our research and really being fiercely proud of what we do. And Syed Nawab Haider Naqvi actually passed away a couple of months ago. He used to say that you have to really, nobody is going to empower you overnight. So my suggestion would be that I think more inter-party, cross-party caucuses, or whatever the name is. We have a parliamentary forum on population, and we had a meeting only about 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. And SN Iqbal Saab came there, and Shari Rahman Saab, both from PPP and PMLN. And they were quite surprised. And I know Shahzad Saab, you attended, Nafisa, you have also attended. They were quite shocked to see on a day which was acrimonious sort of day for politics, which is almost every day in Pakistan, that we had cross-party presence. So, and men and women, not just women. So I think people in parliament can come together on an important issue. They must come together about population growth rate, because we have the census results, we have data that shows, we've done a recent study on the number of abortions that's taking place in Pakistan. We have something like 3.8 million women are going through abortions. All of these are mentioned actually in the SDGs. The unmet need for family planning is an SDG. Lowering maternal mortality, which cannot be done without family planning access, is one of the primary SDGs that we should be able to achieve. But I think, and we can provide the data, but the action and the will has to come. And I just want to end by saying that poor countries, we've been analyzing and looking at the experience, exemplars they are called, in something, whether it's in lowering neonatal mortality, eliminating malnutrition, etc., or in family planning. What is the key ingredient? And I mentioned Nepal. These are poor countries: Nepal, Malawi, Lao, PDR. It's really a group of individuals. Maybe it's some very high level doctors, but it's mainly political parliamentary members who have really advocated for a certain thing to cause a turnaround. And I think, why not? I mean, look at the people, the three colleagues from the parliament. They themselves are just capable of doing it. Add 10 more. I think, to raise that voice. And I think that leadership to me is about knowing what to do, but having the courage to actually do it. And I think some of these things are courageous, like tackling the NFC award, bringing up the leadership to say you're failing. So I think that is what, it won't happen easily, but it can be done. So I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for perspective from a seasoned researcher. I would now like to come to Ms. Shaista Malik again. And of course, I mean, the road to SDGs has been bumpy, but still there are many good initiatives taking place in the space, just the way Dr. Zeba Sattar mentioned. And one of the initiatives, and there's a lot of noise around it these days, is gender responsive budgeting. And recently there was a delegation planned for Berlin for sensitizing German parliament on the GRB taking place in Pakistan. And of course, you were part of the parliamentary caucus that was to visit Germany around that. And also you're part of the caucus that is taking initiative on that. So again, this is a very innovative approach and not embedded in South Asia, but somehow Pakistan is taking a lead and National Assembly is at the forefront. So, and again, this directly hits the SDG goals of financial inclusion, which are in cross-cuttings and running through multiple SDG goals. So your thought process around it, about this initiative and how this is going to facilitate not only women empowerment, but also SDGs across the board.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to answer Dr. Zeba's initiative. You know, the government has realized the importance of population, how we need to control. And I would just let you know that I did have a meeting with the Prime Minister and we discussed the population part, that this has to be taken up, because whatever initiatives you take, whatever planning you do, but until and unless this, I say before it was that the bomb is ticking, but I say now that it has exploded. You know, there's a explosion of population here. So the government is cognizant to the fact that this needs to be tackled and tackled immediately and with good. So one thing, this I wanted to share. And another good thing which is happening, that just this afternoon at about 2:30, we are having a meeting on gender mainstreaming in the parliament. And there's going to be an election, and we are going to elect the chairperson who's going to head the gender mainstreaming. So I think once that is done, it will become the responsibility and a must for the chairperson to tackle the population issues, the gender mainstream budgeting, and the other issues, you know, which are very important and which needs to be worked on immediately. So I think, you know, the finance, now coming back to your question, the finances are very important, because women cannot move forward unless and until a certain budget is allocated for their development, for their empowerment. You know, banks are guided, they are told that the finances, a certain amount has to go to the women. And it was initially done, I think in 13, during the period also, that the loans were given, 50% had to be given to the women. But, you know, it's sad, but the political turmoil and the political instability takes away the focus from the main things to these, you know, which are not important. But all these things are in place, you know, and we need to build the capacity of the women also. You know, as you said, they are into stitching. I have worked directly with women, and I have taken, you know, because I represented the Women Entrepreneur Council in the SAARC region and I realized that there were 10 women taking clothes and there were 2 women who were taking other things, you know. So that was the sad part, and I kept explaining that this is something, as you said, it's वो जो आ जाता है ना exhaustion का वो time के बस there's a limit to everything you can take. और इसके लिए, you know, I feel that we need a social welfare department, which is, I'm sad that we don't have it in the center, in the federal, which is very important. कि the main issues, जो policies हैं, जो think tanks हैं जिनको involve करके we can have policies made, वो federal में नहीं है. So women development department should be here also. I have a paper on it, was about to present it in the last government, but couldn't. I think we'll get together, Nafisa. I have it already. We have to present it to the government. This is important. We have to have a women development uske niche we can have the skill development, the capacity building of women, you know, education bhi hai, the will to do things bhi hai, they want to move forward, but unme capacity nahi hai. We need to train them, उनको बजटिंग का बताना होगा, उनको गाइडेंस देनी होगी, उनको प्रेजेंटेशन पे बताना होगा, you know, all these things are lacking which we need to work on. So budgeting is important. They are trying, it is happening, but at a very slow pace. The pace needs to be accelerated. And I think, as I said before, we have to get together, and we do get together. Now that things are settling politically, I think we should move on the social sector and start moving forward. So Dr. Zeba Pass, I would be coming because I am on it and I want to take it forward so we can all get together and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So the pace needs to be accelerated. So coming to Dr. Nafisa, one aspect that has not been discussed yet is role of men, you know, in the entire paradigm. So there's a very recent famous quote that women belong to all those spaces where decision making takes place. Like, how do you see the role of men? Are they male champions supporting women throughout the process, or it's otherwise, especially in the power corridor?
Right. Thank you very much. So my first answer to your just setting the perspective was how women parliamentarians are trying to negotiate within the parliament, whatever space we have, how we are using that space and trying to do things differently by talking to each other across party lines, and some examples I gave. I didn't talk about the challenges. Some of them were discussed by my colleagues, both of them, and I want to again emphasize them. So in all my years, firstly, I've been an activist, I've been a journalist. So I've looked at, you know, from different vantage positions of patriarchy at play. And obviously with all, even the way we are negotiating our presence and all, the impact that we should have made in all these years in the parliament, as women's activists, as an activist on, is not there. So what is it that is blocking us? What I've seen is that women's agenda is the soft image agenda. कि ओहो अगर आपको कोई अच्छी इंप्रेशन डालनी है तो आप एक लेजिस्लेशन बना दें. General Musharraf playing to the gallery in the West, just let's put in the women's seats. And similarly, I would say even now that we have a democratic government, so of course it is definitely more honest. When Shahid Bibi was there, तो definitely center stage था. और हमारा commitment, एक और अच्छा program with respect to SDGs is like these 9 million women who have become the center of household economy because the state has recognized कि औरतों को transfer करेंगे तो responsible use होगा पैसे का. And I'm talking about the Benazir Income Support Program. But our question and our challenge always is, जो आपने glass ceiling की बात की, तो वो थोड़ी टूटती हैं, but in overall the challenge is कि ये soft image ideology से हम patriarchy को तोड़ के कैसे हम औरतों को mainstream करें. And often the policies औरतों के लिए अलग कमरा बना दो. तो women's caucus, okay, fine. That also made the men very happy कि बस वहाँ पर रहेंगे. Women gender mainstreaming committee बना लो उसकी. We need to break that glass ceiling to really make women's agenda the mainstream political agenda of the voters. Or you know, there's a lot of programs that are focused on women. अगर हम पहले 4 SDGs देखें, no poverty, BISP is there. Zero hunger, again, Benazir Income. So good health and well-being, there are plenty of programs focusing on, you know, population management and nutrition and ये सारी हैं. Quality education पर औरतों को stipend 4 सूबों में दे रही. लेकिन gender gap index अगर दुनिया भर का देखें तो फिर भी 145 out of 146 होता है. अच्छी legislations हमने की हैं. The issue is कि ये जो soft image approach to the mainstream political agenda where you know, the powers that be, वो जो decision making, एक तो ये cosmetic है ना कि हम 5 खवातीन हैं तो एक जरूर 5 member हैं तो एक खातून होनी चाहिए, ये सारी चीजें भी हो जाएंगी. Actually जहां decision making कर रहा है, that has to be, and that is something that even as women parliamentarians, I'm not sure we have succeeded in breaking that. एक mold है patriarchy का जो हर चीज के आगे एक स्क्रीन बन के खड़ा हुआ है. अब हम डिस्कस कर रहे थे कि चाइल्ड मैरिज लॉ शुड बी, एंटी चाइल्ड मैरिज लॉ शुड बी, इट इज अ रिक्वायरमेंट. जब ये फॉर द एजेंडा ऑफ पॉपुलेशन मैनेजमेंट, इट इज अ सेंट्रल रिक्वायरमेंट कि भाई आप मैरिज को थोड़ा लेट करें ना. वो हम नहीं कर पाते नेशनल असेंबली में. सो there also there is all these retrogression. तो आपने वो जो मेल वाली बात की, एक तो हमारे एक obviously UN campaign है और हम भी अपने इसमें कहते हैं कि he for she वाला, आज भी इतने सारे हमारे male colleagues बैठे हुए हैं, so they believe in this agenda and they are here, but there is still that patriarchal mindset which all of us together who are ideologically convinced कि women's center stage, you know, or ensuring equality or mainstreaming women is not just a women's agenda, it's a societal agenda. और मुल्क हमारा उसी वक्त economically progress करेगा, socially progress करेगा अगर औरतें और मर्द साथ साथ हर चीज में हो. ये हम power corridors में अभी तक, I don't know about Shaista and Farzana, have we been able to convince that this is really the urgent need of politics, or the way we do politics in Pakistan is to ensure कि, और you know, ये सारी चीजों में, और that has not happened, and that is where we perhaps today we could discuss what we are going wrong. You know, women's manifesto सब में औरतों का होता है, लेकिन soft image से actually the actual real agenda, political, hard political agenda कि औरतों को आपको mainstream करना है. अब women in police, हम 15 साल पहले हम ये कह रहे थे 1% है, आज हम कह रहे हैं 2% है. Am I happy with it? No. अगर आज कोई भी provincial हुकूमत decide करे कि मुझे 10% करना है 6 महीने में, क्या वो नहीं कर सकती? 10% खवातीन को नहीं कर सकती? कर सकती है. It is just the, when you make a decision, we can do it. And that is not happening yet. And I don't know why. Either hum log, you know, we are stuck in a woman's room. Hum log apni leverage nahi kar pa rahe. It's a weakness on part of the women that they are not, or there's some lack of agency somewhere. And that is again the patriarchy that we are not being able to break through.
So just like directly coming to Dr. Ziba Sattar, so we have a stubborn patriarchy. Somehow the soft image policy is not working to its fullest.
It is the wrong policy.
It is the wrong policy, yes.
We have to stop doing
So
appeasing women as a soft image, appeasing the West as a soft.
Sure. So, and we have seen that how in developing countries, when a prioritized agenda takes a back seat, somehow the international development partners, they bring it to the forefront. And your organization, you have an extensive experience of working with literally all the development partners. How do you see their role in creating a sense of urgency around this issue of whether it's gender sensitivity, gender mainstreaming, women empowerment, and then of course, everything is aligned with all the SDGs. So their role, I mean, are they the solution to the problem where they have to take up this agenda in Pakistan, where somehow we are not performing up to the mark?
They meaning international partners?
International development partners.
First of all, I want to really take up, you know, Dr. Nafisa's point. I think it's the possibly strongest point that it's really, we are up against patriarchy, and I think we are pushing. I think there is a push, and I think men, a lot of men really do agree. I mean, it's not that all men are against that, but things die hard. I want to bring up the US election since it is today. I mean, what can be more absurd that a country so-called leading the International Development Brigade cannot agree on, I mean, they're fighting on an issue of whether abortions are illegal or not. I mean, what an absurd agenda. Whereas I told you that in Pakistan, despite restrictions, there are restrictions to having abortions, but women are voting with their feet or practicing with their actions in Pakistan. they're playing around the law and getting abortions in Pakistan. I wouldn't say very freely, but relatively freely. There is no criminalization as has been set out in the law. When it comes to, so I think that moving from that discussion to it becoming a political agenda, I think, that where there is a demand, frankly, I don't think that any of the SDGs, coming back to the SDGs, will be met unless women are, the gender, I would really raise that. I, of course, emphasize population growth, but I think that's also a manifestation of the fact that women have no power to make decisions. A lot of women do have that power, but most of them don't. So when it comes to the international partners, I have mixed feelings, because I think whatever the international partners have brought to Pakistan, quite honestly, I don't think that becomes our national agenda. I do remember that, a particular donor had really raised poverty. Poverty is the most important thing before one of the elections. The other one was malnutrition by the World Bank. There's no secret. But has that really gone to, I don't think international partners are here for that long, nor are they so loyal to their agendas that we actually get to the roots of why we have malnutrition in Pakistan. Why is it concentrated in certain areas? So I think that's an absolutely wrong route for, as a Pakistani. I don't see myself as, I just am a researcher. Researchers really reflect realities. We dig out the realities. I think it has to be our own agenda. And until it's seen as look at polio. Polio, I mean, it's so absurd that our children are the ones who are really suffering. And all the campaign is really, and the campaign is largely being financed internationally, is really saying that, no, it's safe, it's for your own children. We are having to fight the image that it's an international agenda. So I don't think that's the route to go. I think it's a realization, and I do think it has to start from the grassroots. I think, once in your constituencies, etc., you will, if women have more voice, I think this agenda will be loud and clear. And I think there will be more power to work in partnership. Chaisa, you said, the data, I think the strong partnerships have worked. As I said, in Iran, under Ayatollah, Khomeini, at that point, a very radical decision was taken about family planning. And who led that? It was a bunch of doctors, university professors, and they convinced the leadership कि आप कर लें इसको legalize, because everyone has gone ahead and just condone it. Similarly, in Saudi Arabia, look at what is happening for women. I think people realize that things have moved on and things change. The fertility rate in Saudi Arabia is 2.6, whereas we are 3.6, because women in Saudi Arabia have access to contraception through the private sector. So thanks.
So thank you very much, Dr. Zeba. And I'm quickly going over to Ms. Farzana Yaqub before I open the floor for questions, because I can see we have an expert audience sitting here. So very quickly, Ms. Farzana, so a lot of opinions from the panelists: stringent patriarchy, getting the policy wrong. So in your opinion, what is direly needed in the system? Is it die-hard advocacy, hitting the pots and pans, creating noise around these issues, and bringing women to the forefront in terms of empowerment, and then again developing a nexus with SDGs? Or it is something like further tangible legislations are needed, which we missed upon in the past decades? What is one intervention that you would take as an entry point for addressing the issue?
Since Dr. Zeba mentioned American elections, look at the Western countries. The biggest, champion of democracy, America, has yet to have a female president. While we have had a female prime minister, we currently have a female chief minister of the biggest province of Pakistan. So women being at the leadership point, yes, they are there. But as Dr. Nafisa said, we're very much cosmetic. Everyone knows that. And I think women do air these problems that we are facing कि वो हम एक glass के डब्बे में हैं और and we regularly hit the wall. We regularly hit the wall. But people don't see us hitting the wall. What generally people see is us being very brave and being very productive. और उन्हें ये लग रहा होता है कि हाँ बस आ गई हैं. So there's this general impression. और उसमें मैं मेंशन करना चाहूंगी कि देखें मैं इलेक्शन लड़ती हूँ, ठीक है. My perception is very different amongst the constituents than the women who come via reserve seats, although they work as hard as me when it comes to elections, but they will always be treated as हाँ they have an extra privilege और ये तो ऐसे ही आ गई हैं. I mean reserve seat वाली खवातीन parliamentarians को अभी तक as an proper equal parliamentarian का status नहीं मिला. So I know this because in Kashmir we have like 5 female parliamentarians who come on reserve seats. I was always heavier than them. Why? Because I had a constituency. And I couldn't understand like, we're in the assembly, we're sitting on the same seats, but there's a huge gap. And a lot of that is also to do, I mean, we have to accept it with the party leaderships. Political party leaderships have to be the change makers. We have like जैसे CECs में खवातीन होती हैं, so we've come a long way. To say that no, it is not happening. No, there are a lot of really strong women who are now really like not only sitting on the most important decision making tables, but also voicing their voice. So the representation is actually becoming meaningful. For that to be translated into actions is going to take some time. Coming to the international donors, we need to treat them as donors and nothing more. We cannot be taking up agendas from them. That as a state, as a country, independent country, it can never be a donor-led agenda, as Dr. Zeba said. Having said all that, what is it that we can really do? One, engage with the youngsters, the youth. Women empowerment should be part of the political manifesto, but once again, not as a cosmetics, but as one of the priority areas. जैसे कहा जाता है रोटी कपड़ा और मकान, तो औरत भी, because उस रोटी उस कपड़े और उस मकान की हिफाजत और उसको एक्चुअली बनाना और चलाना औरत कर रही है. The man is financing all of this. So together it has to be like all the political parties. I hope that the caucus can get them to put it into the manifesto in the priority number 1, 2, 3. Put it in the first 5 priorities. It's going to be a huge success, but it can't be on the last page. ये like by the way kind of agenda नहीं हो सकता. I mean ये वो मुल्क है जिसमें hardly 3 to 4% of GDP is going into education and health. So when we're looking at that, to खवातीन की empowerment में क्या आएगा? 0.5% of the GDP. But for a starter, okay, fine. But it has to start with the political will. It has to be part of the first page of the political manifesto.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Extremely grateful for your positive discussion. And now I would like to open the floor for questions. Can we take it one by one? Yes, I would like to. Sure, please.
Dr. Zeba, question from you. You told that there are about 3.8 million abortion takes place in Pakistan. Are these voluntary abortion or the miscarriages are included in it?
Induced abortions, voluntary abortions, and mainly being used in lieu of, because there are no decent family planning services. I'm sure women would prefer to avoid a conception rather than to have an abortion. Most of them are accompanied by their husbands. These are married women with, children that are mostly. This is what our recent study. It's called Safeguarding Women's Health, believe it or not. But so it's very much.
Can we take a question from the end of the row?
Thank you very much. I'm Shahar Bukhari. There are a number of questions, but I will focus on only one. Talk about gender-sensitive budget. Talk about women empowerment. SDGs out of 70 are directly linked with women. And because I have served United Nations as SDG advisor, no coordination between the public departments, either at federal level, nor at provincial level. And when we highlighted the gender sensitive budget, but about the budget, the only one thing that is important, that is resource allocation. But we have a problem. We are unfortunate country. There are change of governments, just like sometimes it's Hardy, Lemon, it is JJ. That's a problem. And even if the government is committed to achieve Agenda 2030,
Sure.
they allocate the resources.
Sure. We would like to.
Just last. There is a bureaucratic act of budgeting.
Sure. Sir, we would appreciate if you can just put forth the question since it's a Q&A round.
That
Sure.
is just departments gets only 4 to 5 months for spending. 3 months wasted post allocation, 3 months wasted in winding up. So these are.
Sure. Ma'am, please, your question.
Thank you very much. So I would like to ask all the panelists, and I think this is coming from what Dr. Nafisa Shah has said about the fact that when we want to mainstream women, we are creating separate structures for them. So they're like parallel structures for women, whether it's women's police stations. Recently, I heard about Punjab wanting all women lecturers to be in the women's campuses because of the recent incident. I mean, we're basically completely sidelining women from the public space. And my question is really that given the way Nadra and the systems in Pakistan operate, where a woman is dependent upon a father or a husband or a brother to even get an NIC, how could parliamentarians kind of really go into the nitty-gritties of dismantling this system of control, because it is all about control?
To all of the panelists, like anyone who would like to,
अच्छा चलें ठीक है. Coming to Nadra, फैमिली ट्री तो बनेगी, सो एक हद से ज्यादा तो आप मतलब औरतों को उसमें अलग या वो नहीं कर सकते. There is some man involved at some point, but yes, be it FRC या Bayform या सारा कुछ उसमें issues होते हैं, and such an important question क्योंकि divorces का rate high हो रहा है, तो single women are facing major issues, and that is translated then into the implications when it comes to property rights as well, the root cause, but what I can say is that work has been done, and it's an ongoing progress that is taking place. And when people like you highlight these issues, what parliamentarians, it's not like not on the agenda, but it just brings our focus back, because they choti jo hai na, there are so many firefights happening all the time within the parliament and within everywhere. There is this impression that parliamentarians jo hai na, or especially khawaateen jo hai na, they're like बस बन ठन कर आ गई हैं, और क्योंकि ये हम मीडिया पर देखते हैं, you know, the way we're degraded on media, कि ये कि इसने कितनी बात की थी और इसने कितना काम किया है, जबकि आप legislation पर देखें तो women have been the most active parliamentarians who have done legislation, worked on legislation as compared to men, and this is hardly 20% of the parliament which has done more work. So work नहीं, लेकिन जो चिक चिक है उसकी ज़्यादा importance है. So it is there, but it just brings it back to focus. Nadra has been a game changer in the sense that it is facilitating. BISP has also helped. अभी जैसे जो floods आए थे, उसमें like you know BISP ने सबसे पहला और important काम पैसे देने से पहले क्या किया था? औरत की identity provide की थी. अगर आपके पास शनाख्ती कार्ड नहीं है, तो फिर आपको पैसे नहीं मिलने, और वो शनाख्ती कार्ड कौन दे रहा था? नादरा दे रहा है. So in the last most devastating floods, तब भी जब पैसों की बात हो रही थी, और अब उसके ऊपर बिल्ड किया हुकूमत ने कि अब इनको घर भी दे. So the structure is being built, and it is slow, as Shaisa Parvez Malik said, it is slow, but I see that, you know, we're kind of eating away at the apple from the core to the outside, to wo bhi nazar nahi aa raha. And I believe someday these fabulous women are going to shatter these rooms, and that's going to create a lot of noise. All the work that they're doing is not creating a lot of noise. So wo jo, you know, we face that कर तो बहुत कुछ रही है, लेकिन recognize नहीं हो रहा, और मर्द कुछ भी नहीं कर रहा. His presence is like, oh, I'm here, so I'm done. A woman has to actually achieve something to be accepted that she's done and she's here. We walk the opposite direction all the time. So the work is in progress, and different initiatives are just facilitating the pathways of those final destination goals. I would also like to mention that this has also helped in financial inclusion and financial literacy of women, these current floods, because women now had to open up not only bank accounts but mobile wallets. कैसे खोलेंगे, उनको समझना पड़ा ना कि mobile wallet कैसे खुलेगा. So here is the financial literacy that kind of fed into the issue, and this was all connected with what the mother organization NADRA. So the work is in progress, and I hope that it'll be fast-paced.
Sure. Thank you very much. Ma'am, you had a question. I'll take you after that.
Thank you so much. I actually have a question and something in reference to what Nafisa mentioned, that everything is a little too cosmetic and it's a soft agenda issue. For example, I'll just give you one example, and I'll ask I'll request the parliamentarians to look into it. एक legislation pass हुई women on boards की. Every board needs to have a female on the table, and we had a very interesting situation in which, for example, a tech board, NITB के board में एक औरत होनी जरूरी है. वो एक औरत टेक से नहीं होनी चाहिए, उस एक औरत का एकेडमिया से होना जरूरी है, ताकि वो उस टेक के बोर्ड पे बैठ के भी कोई टेक की गुफ्तगू ना कर सके. So you know how you are putting a person on the table, yet limiting what she's willing to or able to say, so you can just, you know, brush off her opinion. कि tech table पे एक academia. So maybe one thing that I'd really like all these strong women to do is that evaluate what women on board stands for, so that when they're talking, they're of relevance. One was that. Two, आप लोगों ने एक और बात की, और शाइस्ता आपने भी की और फरजाना ने भी की, that is that जो औरतें हैं वो entrepreneurship में जब जा रही हैं तो हम कढ़ाई सिलाई से आगे नहीं जा पा रहे हैं. If one of the things that also I'd really like all of you to work on is that जब tech incubators की बात होती है तो उनके mentors जो होते हैं वो successful entrepreneurs होते हैं. जब female entrepreneurship की बात होती है तो उनको manage करने वाले लोग खुद नौकरी पेशा होते हैं जिन्होंने entrepreneurship नहीं की होती, with a limited scope. So maybe just like tech incubators, you need to bring in women entrepreneurs to mentor the female entrepreneurs who are starting new things. जब limited scope होगा तो हम खाने की रेडी और सिलाई कढ़ाई को ऑनलाइन कर दें. उसको आप women chamber of commerce को अगर देख लेते हैं तो उसमें अगर 80 औरतें हैं तो उनमें से 75 जो है कपड़े लेके हम फलाने मुल्क चले जाते हैं, कपड़े लेके हम फलाने मुल्क चले जाते हैं, बिकॉज उनको लेके जाने वाले लोगों का एक्सपोजर भी वही है. So maybe one of the biggest problem is that the people who are mentoring them are also need mentoring themselves because they're not subject experts. जैसे tech incubators का कर रहे हैं उस तरह से ही. Just one question. आपने FRC की बात की थी. In single women leading the family as family head, FRC में जब तलाक हो जाती है औरत को तो या वो हस्बैंड की FRC के नीचे आते होते हैं या वो वालिद की FRC के नीचे आते होते हैं. But can a women lead a household in an FRC, और या उसकी identity हो सकती है कि नहीं हो सकती, because हमारे यहाँ फिलहाल ये वाला नहीं होता है. So how would that work?
I will just take one last question from the lady sitting across, and then we have to, in the interest of time, we have to close the session.
This is gender discrimination.
ये वहाँ से आए हैं. अच्छा नहीं, we have taken sir. We have अच्छा जी 2 आ चुके हैं. Okay. Sure. We can take all the questions together and sure. Nini ma'am, I'm asking you to put forth your question, please. Hmm. Hmm. Mhm. 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 Sure, 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 sure. Sure. Mhm. 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 Sure. 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 Thank you very much. Sir, can we take your question at the, yes, sir, please, your question, and then
Thank
can
you
we,
very much.
answer them collectively.
This has been a fascinating sit-in for me. Wide range of views. This is wonderful proposals and discussions and views. I have some slightly different views. We all know what is to be done. Everyone knows it. There are lots of policies. We're just not able to do it. Why is that? Because I never heard the word local government level, local level. The delivery of services has to take place at the local level, not at the provincial MPA or MNA's level. This is one of the biggest problems in Pakistan. And what's more, we talk about education and so on. Fine. It's not just physical education we are worried about. Nebraska and the USA put us back 30 years. They came here during Ziaulak's time because of the Afghan war. And this is how our madrasas grew. The syllabus was changed. And the American weapons and Saudi money. This has to be reversed. I'm told they want to come back. We should welcome them. And so get rid of this fuzla, as they say. About, and some people from the National Assembly here. Please, I just close. I know.
Sure.
I'll discuss later on. How much money is actually sanctioned for education or health? Very little. To give you an example, this metro from Pindi to Islamabad cost about 43 billion rupees plus. The total budget of Rawalpindi division is less than 3.5 billion a year. And metro was built in a year and a half. So 10 times the budget spent on that. For God's sake, less schools. And public-private partnership, the worst thing that Margaret Thatcher did to England was public-private partnership. The health services collapsed, the railways collapsed, the water services collapsed. And we're doing the same thing in Pakistan. So, women के लिए, औरतों के लिए जी आपको जो करना पड़ेगा, बिस की भी आप बात करें, not enough. Health and education at the local level must be delivered.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, if you'd like to respond, and then we go toward closure of the session. Sure, sure, sure. We have to close the session. It's sure, please.
We talked about the police station and the desk
that just
Mm.
amazing.
Mhm. Sure.
So from the grassroots level,
Mhm.
till prosecution is first
Mm.
information till
Mhm.
in the justice system, a female goes through a process.
Sure.
There are, and moreover, there are 116 GBV courts which need to be established in Pakistan.
Mhm.
Out of them, only 93 are established so far.
Sure.
So if the panel can talk about that, and empowering women starts from a very grassroots level. At district level, committees need to be established, tehsil level under women commission in different provinces.
Sure.
So that is my point.
Sure. Thank you very much.
And one more thing, more than that, the panel should consider harassment in the workplace.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
And
Thank
this
you.
is a very big problem.
Thank you.
I sacked a few people when I was in the planning commission. I was told, don't touch this chap. He's known as Kala Nag. I had him thrown out, although he was paid for by the World Bank.
Thank you, sir. So this brings us to the end of our session, and I would like to thank each of our speakers for their valuable contribution and also our esteemed audience for participation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Grateful. Group-